Eggheads, this is Ashleigh Bonner, founder of the indie educational video game studio Electric Egghead, and I'm in the 5th month of Thomas Brush's Start a Game Studio in 12 Months challenge. During this month, I'll be learning code and I'll be learning the basics of C++. So, it's day 7, and if you want to join in on the fun, you can go to the hashtag 12 Months Game Studio or join the Discord link. So, it is February, which means that it's Black History Month. So I'll be giving you little snippets of our historical figures who have made a difference in our community and made a difference in the world at large. So, today I'm going to tell you about Miriam Makeba. Miriam Makeba was born March 4th, 1932, and she was known as Mama Africa. She was a South African singer and civil rights activist known for denouncing apartheid on the world stage and campaigning abroad for the end of the oppressive policy. Her activism led to her South African passport being revoked in 1960 by the apartheid regime, and they banned her from returning to her country in 1963. But the world came to Makeba's aid, and Guinea, Belgium, and Ghana issued her international passports. She received passports from 6 other countries in her lifetime and was granted honorary citizenship in 10 countries. Despite the success that made her a star, Miriam Makeba refused to wear makeup or curl her hair for performances, proudly wearing what came to be known internationally as the Afro look. Her 4th marriage to civil rights activist, Black Panther, and Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee leader Stokely Carmichael in 1968 caused controversy in the United States, and her record deals and tours were canceled. After that, they moved to Guinea, and as the apartheid system crumbled, she returned to South Africa for the first time in 1990. So thank you, Miriam Makeba, for all you've done to provide equality for South Africans and Black people around the world. And this bio is via the Atlanta Black Star. So with that said, I'm going to go on to move over to my Visual Studio, and we'll learn more about classes and objects. Alright, so one more thing. The music you're hearing is by David Feslian at feslianstudios.com. He makes songs and sound effects, and his work is able to be donated. That's at Fesliyan, Fesliyan studios.com. Also, I'm using Mike Daines for our YouTube tutorial, and he's the founder of Giraffe Academy. Alright, so yesterday I made the book class, public book class, in C++, and I put 3 different attributes in it: the title, author, and pages. After that, I made the book constructor. Actually, I made 2 book constructors, which is basically just a function in a class. So this is the first constructor or function, which doesn't take any arguments. It just specifies a title, author, and pages. The second constructor takes in 3 arguments: title, author, and pages. And this small a means argument, argument title, argument author, argument pages. And this lowercase a is not mandatory in your variable names when you're doing a constructor. So you can name it whatever you want. Alright, so let's continue for February 7th and see what there is to learn. Okay, so let's see. Alright, so just a minute. Okay, so I was just plugging in my phone and now I am back. Alright, so today we're going to be learning more about classes and objects. And I'm watching Mike Dane's tutorial on my phone. Alright, so now we're going to learn about object functions. Okay, so object functions are declared in a class, and they can be used to let other sections of that class modify, perform modifications, or things like that. Alright, so I'm going to create a new class and look at object functions. So let's go right here and do class student. And you usually want your class name to start with a capital letter. Alright, we're going to want to make this a public class. String name, string major, double GPA, oops. Okay, so I'm just going to write this out and then I will show you what exactly it means. I'm push Control D to copy the previous line. Oops, sorry. Go to the end of the line and push Control D. Then I'm just going to change these. And GPA equals AGPA. Alright, so get rid of this extra space. Okay, so we have this public class called student, and this just defines the basic skeleton, like a house, just the walls of a student at a university. So the student has a name, a string major, and a double GPA. And within this class is a constructor, which is basically a function. So this student constructor takes 3 arguments: string a name, string a major, and double a GPA. It then assigns each of these arguments to the original variables. That way you can just, once you get into your main, you can just define these arguments, and then each argument will match to the variable. So let's keep going. Hmm. Alright, cool. So this constructor will help us simplify this entire process so we can add a lot of different students easier. So how are you doing today? What are you working on? Leave a comment below. Um, you can do whatever you want. You can follow your dreams. You can create the life that you want, and you can contribute your difference because all of us, we are different from one another, and we were made to be different. Because, at least in my opinion, if we were the same, then we wouldn't be able to evolve as a species because there wouldn't be anyone to give different perspectives. So contribute your difference to the world. Be proud of being different from the next person because you were meant to be. Alright, so you're amazing and thank you for watching. Okay. Okay, so now that we have created the basic skeleton of our student class, and so this class allowed us to make a custom, it allowed us to make a custom data type. So the usual data types are string, double, int, but with classes you can make custom real world data types like student or like book or like book, right? So now we have a student data type. Oops, sorry about that. We have a student data type. So now we can make student objects or instances of our student class. So I'm going to do student, and that's a new data type that we just created, student 1. And then because we created the constructor, we can do it like this. We can just say student 1 is named Jasmine, and her major is finance, and her GPA is 2.4. Okay, so student, just let me see. So student takes a string, a major, and a double. So what I did was I specified in my main function that I wanted to be, that I wanted space, and that's what it is. So that I wanted, that's not right. No, that's not right. Okay. Let me see. Okay. I'm getting an error message. Constant character 4. So why am I getting this error message? What did I do wrong here? Then I'm going to go to here, to the end of this line, and push Control D, and then just change the information and say Jim, and he does art, and he's got a 3.2 GPA. But let's see, student 1. Let me go back. I'm getting an error message. Let me see why. Student takes in a string name, a string major, and a double GPA. This constructor. Name equals a name, major equals a major, GPA equals a GPA. Jasmine, finance. Oops, maybe it's this actually. There we go. Okay, that was the problem. So I put in the double GPA as a string rather than putting it in as a double without those quotation marks, and that was the problem. So, okay, now that we have our two students, Jasmine and Jim, I think I'll name him Tyler. Alright, so now we have our two students, student 1, Jasmine, who's a finance major and has a 2.4 GPA, and then we have student number 2, Kyler, who's an art major and has a 3.2 GPA. So what can we do now that we have these two students? Let's see. Okay, so to go with Mike's actual tutorial, let me just raise up Kyler's GPA. Let's give him a 3.7. Alright. So, let's say this school has an honor roll. And you have to have at least a 3.5 to be on the honor roll. How can we use these student objects or these real world objects, these instances of the student class, and we have two instances, one instance, two instances, or two objects, to determine whether or not these students are on the honor roll. So let's see. Okay, so under our constructor, to see whether or not they do or do not have, whether they are or are not on the honor roll, we can put a bool has honors, and oops. Alright, so to see whether or not these students are on the honor roll or not, or have a GPA of 3.5 or greater, we create this little function right underneath our constructor, which ends right here. So bool, which is either two things, true or false, we created a bool function and determined what and laid down the basic foundation of whether or not they are on the honor roll or not. So this function, because it's a bool function, will return a bool. So we said bool has honors if the GPA right here is greater than or equal to 3.5, return true. So yes, they do have honors. But if it is not, return false. They're not on the honor roll. So let's continue and see how to apply that to our two student objects in the main function. Okay, so we can apply the bool has honors function to our student objects. So this is actually it. Sorry, it's a Boolean function which returns a Boolean which only can be true or false. Okay, so let's say we call our has honors function for student 1. Now that is Jasmine. So she has a 2.4. So when this prints out the student 1 dot has honors, it'll say it won't say false. It will say, I push F5 to start with debugging. This will give us a give that a second. What do you think that this is going to print out? Do you think it's going to print true or false, or what do you think? Well, it's not gonna print either of those. I said that. But what do you think is gonna print? Put it in the comments below. All right. So what did we get? We got 0. Actually, let me give this a bit of space. Let's see. Okay, so now let me try that again. F5. Alright, so what it actually printed out was 0. And with computers, 0 indicates false, and 1 indicates true. So 0, Jasmine does not have a 3.5 or greater, she has a 2.4. Okay, so that's a false for Jasmine. And the great thing about this is, of course, you know, there's only 2 student objects. Of course we know that Jasmine's is lower than a 3.5. But when you have thousands of students, then you won't be able to, you won't know that off the top of your head. And you can use this has honors function to return a Boolean value and see who does and does not have honors. I mean, sorry, who is and is not on the honor roll. All right, so let's keep going. So if we do student 2, it should be true because Kyler has a 3.7 GPA. So I'm going to push F5. And we have a 1. So yes, it is above 3.5. Okay, so that's great. So this simple little object function can be applied to as many objects as you like, and that which saves time and reduces redundancy and takes, you know, it does all those things, so you don't have to keep applying it to different you don't have to keep writing it for different objects. So this great thing, all we have to do is specify which object is the has honors function gets applied to. So if it applies to student 1, then it's going to look at student 1's GPA, which is 2.4, which is Jasmine's. But if we talk about student 2 and we ask, oh, are they on the honor roll? We say yes, because Kyler has a 3.7. So that makes everything a lot easier. It makes us less need to repeat code and keep calling the same function or keep writing out the same function, which will save us a lot of time. So we could do this for any student object that we put in, which will make this a lot easier. Okay, so a great thing about this function right here is that it allows you to get data and modify data, which we'll be doing a bit later and learning how to modify the data. Okay, so yes. All right, so cool. Okay, so another great thing about having this where is it? This function, this has honors function right here within our class, is that we can easily modify the data. So let's say a higher up person in the school says, oh well, 3.5 may be too high a little bit. So how about we lower the GPA needed to get on the honor roll? So because we created the code nice and clean, all we have to change is the GPA number right here. So all we have to say is if the GPA is greater than or equal to, let's say 3.0, then all those students get to be on the honor roll. So of course we know that even at 3.0, Jasmine is not going to be on the honor roll. But she's getting there, she's working at it. And Kyler will be with 3.7. So that makes it really easy for us to modify the entire program with let me just go back to it, with just a tiny amount of changes. Okay, so this is not part of the tutorial, but for instance, what's the difference between an object function and a constructor? So a constructor is also a function, but it serves a different purpose. It constructs a skeleton. So this one, for instance, doesn't have any if statements, and it doesn't actually do anything. All a constructor does is it's a function that creates a skeleton it creates a blueprint for something that you want to do, versus the function within the class, which actually does something and which actually specifies some sort of event. So the has honors says, well, if the GPA is this, then do that. And if it is not that GPA, then do something else. Versus the constructor, which just says, oh, okay, there is a name that exists, and a major and a GPA. It just gives us a place to add in some arguments, or we can not have any arguments. But a constructor just constructs a blueprint, and that's how this constructor or this function is different from a regular. Is different from an object function. All right, so yes, so this one helps to specify what we want to happen in the function, and this one helps to specify what the function, sorry, not the function. This helps specify what we want to, what conditions or what event we want to happen with the object. But this function or constructor helps us to build the object. All right, so let's keep going. Now we're going to look at getters and setters. All right. Actually, before we move on to the getters and setters, let me just add in okay, so before we get into the getters and setters, let me just add in this this class and this object function to match with my existing program. So we have a character named Tom Scott, and we know a little bit about him. So I'm going to just make this a bit more related to that. So I'm going to actually remove my book constructor, my book class, and oh no, sorry, yes, I'm going to just modify my book class, and so I can use it within the program. Okay, so I actually have two book constructors. This one takes no arguments, and this one takes 3 arguments. Alright, so let's see. See out. No, let me do that. And then, let's see. String character name equals Tom Scott, student objects. Okay, here's the book objects. So, see out character name so character name loves only one book, which is, I spelled which wrong, which is book 3.author, book 3.title. Alright, so when this runs, it'll say blank, the character name loves only one book, which is book 3's title, which is which is which is no title, which is untitled book. Created, and the author is who cares, and it has, let's say it has 1 page. Alright, so let me grab that and just move the book objects a little bit lower. I did Control X to cut it. So what that does is that cuts, Control X cuts the text and it copies it to the clipboard, so you can paste it somewhere else. Versus Control versus Control C, which just copies it but leaves it there. Alright, so let's place this code later in the program at the bottom of my main. Control F. Oops. Where'd it go? There it is. In main. There we go. So let me just put that right here at the bottom of the program. And that'll just say that specifies the book object still. Except I just moved it down lower. And character name loves only one book, which is Untitled Book. Alright, so let's go back up to the top. And let's see. Student objects. Okay. So title. Alright, that's fine. So see out. Character name. Had a character name, went to a high school. His GPA was lower than student 1 that has honors. Oh, that's not right, sorry. That's not right. This is a true and false thing. So like student 1 dot, this is a bool, right? Oh no, sorry about that. That's not right. Went to high school. Went to high school. GPA was lower than expected, but higher than hoped. Was higher than expected, but lower than hoped. Alright, so let me see. I add one more thing. So if the GPA is greater than or equal to 3.0, return true. See out this student is on the honor roll. And then return true. This student is not on the honor roll. I spelled honor wrong. Honor roll. Alright. So is this other student on the honor roll? Then see out student 1 that has honors. Alright, so F5. Oh, that's what it is, number grid. Alright, so let me just give this number grid space so we can see the code better. Alright, so F5 to start with debugging. And we have this student is not on the honor roll. Tom Scott went to high school. His GPA was higher than expected but lower than hoped. Is this other student on the honor roll? 0. No, they are not. Alright. So, cool. That's not exactly what I need to do. Let me see. And then, so I return false. So right here, student 1 has honors, is return them the Boolean, which is 0. Because this student doesn't have honors. Because she is at a 2.4. So okay. So I'm gonna grab the student object and put it lower. Okay. So now we move that down and let's continue on to getters and setters. So I'm working on learning getters and setters right now. I made this movie class which creates a movie data type. So I'm going to specify some different movie attributes and within this class. So first I want to do a string title, semicolon, and then string director, string rating, and then I want to make a constructor that takes 3 arguments. Alright, so I'm going to do string a title, string a director, string a rating. Alright, so that's my 3 arguments that are passed through the movie data type. So when I actually declare the movie objects or the instances within my main, I can just pass these values and easily create movies. So I want to set the title to a title, and then I'm gonna leave my cursor at the end of this this declaration and push Control D twice, and that'll just duplicate that line. Then I'll just change these ones to director and change this one to a director. And then, let's see, I change this last one to rating and a rating. A rating. There we go. So now I have both the movie class, actually I skipped a part, public. Here we go. Alright, so this is a public class of the data type movie, and it has three variables that are making the structure of this class, and then it has a constructor which takes those 3 arguments. So after that I want to go into my main function and go ahead and make the objects. So I'm going to do movie Avengers, and this is based on Mike Dane's tutorial. Then I want to put in the Avengers, comma, Joss Whedon, and PG-13. So, there we go. Okay. Then I want to see out the Avengers. Avengers dot rating, and this will just print out the rating of Avengers. So right here, what I did was I made a Avengers object or instance of this movie class that is past the string title, string director, and string rating right here. So the Avengers is directed by Joss Whedon, and the rating is PG-13. So that's how I easily made this object right here. And that is a really simple way to create new objects based on a class. And this movie right here with this capital M is a new data type that I just created. So what are getters and setters and how do they work? Let's see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Alright, so let me know in the comments below what you are confused about or what you may want some clarification on, and I will respond as soon as possible. So when I push F5 to start with debugging, it's going to print out PG-13. So it's going to pull that rating argument from my movie object, PG-13. There we go. Okay, so you probably know that movies have different ratings. They have P, G, PG-13, NRR, and then there's like, I believe there's MA, maybe that's a video game, and then there's like the NC-17 or whatever it is. So the only thing, one issue with this movie object is that I can put in anything for the rating. So I could put, for instance, I could put dog. And of course we know that dog is not a movie rating, unfortunately. So what we want to do is maybe do some data validation to make sure that what we put in actually makes sense. So let's do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So with the getters and setters, we're going to enforce certain ratings. So you can't just put in whatever you want. So I'm gonna go back to the movie class up at the top, and we're going to change this public to private. So before we do that though, what does this public mean? This public means that all of this data within this public movie class is accessible from any other code. So any other code can access these string title, string director, and string rating, and it can also access this constructor. So we are going to change the this public to private so that only certain code can access this movie class. Well, actually, we may just make a private one. So we can put the string rating within this. Okay, so now we have this private area of the movie class. And we said that we want the string rating to be private. So what happens is this restricts the string rating to the movie class. So for instance, the only code that can use the string rating is the actual code within this movie class. So we printed it within our main, but now look, we have an error message because this rating variable is no longer accessible because it's private. So we have an error message, and the message is member movie rating declare that not line 9 is inaccessible, and that's because it's private, and the code is E0265. All right, so that's one of the error messages you'll get if your variables are inaccessible and in a private section of your class. All right, so and then we'll also learn. Let's see. All right, so this string rating is restricted to the class, but it can be used by the constructor. All right, so To enforce certain input for rating, we're gonna keep this variable private, and underneath our public, um, underneath our constructor, we're gonna add a public function. So we're gonna say void set the rating right there, and then it's in the set rating function, which doesn't return anything, is going to just take one argument. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we did was we made the string rating private, so it's only accessible within the movie class. And then what we did was, instead of setting the rating to A rating, we called the set rating function that also passes the A rating variable. And so then after that, we also made this next function public as well, so it's accessible by any code. So we did void set rating, and that takes in the string A rating right here. And then we set the rating variable to we set the private rating variable to A rating. So this will allow us to do some data validation with the rating variable. So if I go down now, this is saying that I don't have access to it. So if I did Avengers.rating equals dog, and then I try to print it out, it'll say that it is not accessible. So that can help us enforce certain ratings, so people can't just put oh the movie has a dog rating. That would be an interesting way to rate it, but it's not standard. So okay, so now that we've changed it, if we do want to change the rating information, we have to pass it through the set rating function first. And this will help us validate the data. So I did Avengers.setRating, and I passed it the dog parameter because the set rating function takes one argument, which is a string rating argument. Okay, so to now actually create the rules which are going to be enforced, we're going to do that within our the public section of our movie class. So we're gonna do it within the void set rating function. So because all of the ratings have to be they have to go through the set rating function anyway. So we might as well set the rules within that function. So we're gonna say, oh, if it's PG, PG-13, NC-17, or R, or NR for not rated, then yes, they can set it to that rating. But if it's not any of those, then they can't actually set the new rating. So let's do that. All right. So, what we did in the void set rating function is that we did a simple if statement. We said if the A rating if A rating is equal to G, or, and this is the or operator. There's two vertical lines. If A rating is equal to G, or A rating is equal to PG, or A rating is equal to PG-13, or A rating is equal to R, or A rating is equal to NR, then they can set the rating. But if it's not, then they cannot set it. So let's first create the true event, and then we'll set the false event. Okay, so if the rating does equal any of these, then we're going to set the rating variable, the private rating variable, to A rating, and it's valid. But if it's not valid, then we're going to set the rating to NR. We're just going to let the rating default to not rated, and that'll take care of if they put in some random thing like popcorn or something. It's just gonna say, oh, that's not right, and then it's gonna say not rated. Okay, so set the rating. Okay, so you can see that this Avengers.rating has a red squiggly line and a red rectangle, and it's in my error list. And it's not accessible because it's private. So how do we even get this private variable so we can actually use it? Well, we can do this. We can go back up to our movie class, and underneath our void function, we can create one more function. We can create a string get rating function, and that will just return the it'll return the rating variable, the private rating variable. And so that'll make this rating variable accessible because the string just a minute, hold on, expected a semicolon. Just a minute. Let me see, what is this? That's not right. Okay, so this will solve our problem because this get rating, just a minute, hold up, let me see. Something's wrong with my code. This is here, what does this do? Let me get rid of this one. I think I have one too many. There we go, okay. This coincides to the movie class, okay, gotcha. Alright, so, with those fixed, now let's show that. So, we created this string get rating so we could access the private rating variable. So, and that's accessible because this string get rating function is in the public area. So now we can then access that private variable and we can do data validation on the rating. So how do we do that? Let's see. Okay, so after we've used these getters and setters, we should be getting in R because we set the rating to dog, and we know that is invalid even if it's Beverly Chihuahuas. What is it? Beverly Chihuahuas? The Beverly Chihuahuas? Whatever. Even if it's a dog movie, that's still not valid, of course. So this is going to actually output in R. It's going to output not rated because we set the rating to something that's not valid. It's not one of the rules in our if statement right here. All right, so I'm going to push F5 to start with debugging and show you that. All right, so we have in R, not rated. Cool, that works. Okay, so if we erase this specifically set rating and we use the constructor's parameters we have the rating set to PG-13. So, actually, movie object. Okay. So that will actually return a valid rating. And we'll see it when we push F5 and it'll say PG-13. And we have it right there. Perfect, it's valid. And of course, if we change this to like PG-21, it'll default to not rated. And which is right there. Perfect. So this is working really well. Okay, so we have a great way to control the access to the rating variable. We can create other setters and getters to restrict other data and make sure that it's actually valid. So we did, to summarize, we made the string rating private, so it's not just accessible to any code. It's only accessible within the movie class. But then what we did was within the public section, which is accessible to any code, we created the void set rating function, which takes one argument, the a rating function. Within that function, right here, we then created conditions or constraints for the rating variable. And then we said if it's not any of these, just set it to NR. And then finally we use the get rating to make the private string accessible to our larger program, like the main function and other functions. So right now the only thing that's accessible to other code is the get rating, is the setters right here and the getters right here. So now it's much easier for us to create valid input for our little program, and also to just have a default value. Okay, so that's cool. Alright. Awesome. So, constructor, okay, that's old code. Alright, so I'm gonna move this movie object down lower in my program, and just to integrate it into the program. I'm gonna push Control X to cut it, which also copies it to my clipboard, and then go to the bottom of where my in main is. Here it is, right there, somewhere around about here. And I lost it. In main, there we go. Alright, so I'm just gonna paste it right here, the movie object. I have some book objects from a previous video and the student objects from previous video, and my newest object is a movie object, which is of the movie data type. So all I said was, oh, the Avengers director Joss Whedon, PG-13, and then I outputted the rating, which is PG-13. So I'm just gonna put this in my program. Character name right here, name. Rarely watches movies of this rating. Okay, so really my character is kind of a mess, and he just plays tons of drinking games and doesn't read much, and he doesn't watches movies and he's rated R or more. But he's like 50, so I guess he can do that. Alright, so cool. One thing I wanted to show you that was really cool about Visual Studio, segue into a digression. It's really cool. Is when you create something like a rating, if you hover over it, Visual Studio will give you this information. It'll say, oh, field standard string movie rating. So this is a string within the movie class. And then let's say let me go into my main, which is right here. If I do this string, it'll say local variable. So a local variable within the main class of a standard string name called character name, and then a double, and then let's see, and like this will say, so this get line is showing something different. It's showing that the definition of the get line is in my using declarations function. So I'll show you that real quick. Open this up. So I defined the get line, hashtag define get line, standard get line. This makes it so I can create shorter code. So instead of writing standard get line, I can just write get line. And so this is telling me right here with that little triangle thing that this get line or this cin or whatever is within a different file, which is in my using declarations.h file. And so it says, oh, get line expands to standard get line, which is cool. So and it just gives you lots of hints on how to do things and how things work. All right, so cool. All right, so that's all I'm gonna do today. Thank you for watching and learning about setters and getters with me, movie classes, objects, and C++ and all of these things. I'm gonna upload my code to GitHub, and then I will be saying later. Alright, 2720. I already have some code from earlier, but I'm going to add my new code. So edit the file and paste it in here. Then I'm gonna leave myself a note, added setters and getters, set rating and get the rating, and then I created a private section of the movie class. Alright, working code. Cool. And commit changes. Alright, so now my code is up on GitHub, which is a version control application, which I have all of my code after the videos or if I'm coding offline. So I have lots of days set up and all those things. Okay, so hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you are working on your dreams. I hope you are being consistent and working on not being consistently inconsistent. That's not helpful. So you want to, it's great to just pick one thing and just do it, set a time, do it every day, and just sit down and do it, because that's how you improve. You're not going to improve by doing less, you'll improve by doing more. Okay, so my name is Ashleigh Bonner. I'm the founder of Electric Egghead. Thank you for watching. Later.